She should be in the man cave, but there's other things to do. That's why Holly Hughes is currently joining us now, I think, from Melbourne. How are you, Rockstar?
Hey. I'm in Melbourne. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Miss you.
Well,
I wore the velvet so I could be
you.
close to the man cave.
Thank you. And he's taking a couple of minutes out from, not just advising the Prime Minister informally, not just doing a great podcast with the good people at Nova, not just writing for the Daily Telegraph or appearing here at Sky News, but more importantly, Candy Crush is none other than the wonderful Joe Hildebrand. Right. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much. And note, I wore this kerchief just to signal my respect for you, Paul. I know how much you appreciate
I'm so glad you dressed up
grooming.
for me.
That's right, I did, Holly. And I love the fact that these days now when someone asks you how you are, it's sufficient to say, I'm in Melbourne.
Yeah. All right, now let's get to this. Politicians...
It's how it works.
Third pay rise in a term. Third pay rise. Now, Chris Minns, who could well and truly give plenty of advice to the Prime Minister about how to do things, he's turned around and said wage freeze in New South Wales, right? Why wouldn't Albo come out and do exactly the same thing, Joe? The third pay rise this term.
I honestly do not know. I'm sure we're going to hear plenty of statements saying this is a matter for the Remuneration Tribunal. We don't have any authority. I don't know how New South Wales managed to do it. I actually was just at a New South Wales government function where the state budget was handed down, and this was one of the measures that, while it doesn't necessarily save a huge amount of money in real dollars, the message it sends is absolutely invaluable, which is that we're not asking anyone else to make sacrifices until we make them first. Correct. And that is just lay down, politics 101. So I don't know why there wouldn't be some kind of wage freeze federally.
Now, Holly, you're in the ultimate position here to be able to tell us all to get stuffed. Who cares? We deserve more money than ever before because you have such freedom now to be able to say such things. But do you not think that the Prime Minister...
I do have freedom now.
Rise, mate. Third pay rise in a term. Surely they can turn around and say, OK, not this time.
You know what, though? I mean, the focus is going to be on federal parliamentarians who are still getting paid at less than a quarter of what secretaries of departments are being paid. And I actually think there is a massive disconnect because any minister of a government that is, in the old days, ministers, obviously with Andrew Giles now, that doesn't happen, but ministers used to be accountable for what occurred. And the department heads are receiving now over $1 million a year, which is nothing what the ministers are being paid, yet the ministers are the one who technically should lose their job if everything goes pear-shaped. But the other thing I'd just like to point out, and there is a misconception still in the Australian
you do not have super forever. That ended in 2004.
We do not. There is no such thing as a parliamentary pension anymore. I mean, people have even said to me since the pre-selection, at least you get the pension. No, I do not.
No, you do
When
not.
I leave in a year's time, there is nothing. Thank you very much. Pat on the arse. See you later. So there is no pension there anymore. But look, even Amy Ramekis wrote in The Guardian saying that the lack of the sort of pension for parliamentarians is a problem because why wouldn't parliamentarians spend their last year, their last few months, whatever, sorting up their next gigs?
Well, which brings us to...
They've still got school fees, they've still got a mortgage, but they're great community people, they're great volunteers, they're great leaders of their community. But instead of them being able to go and use those skills, they're forced to look for employment. I mean, Scott Morrison is the first Prime Minister to leave with no pension whatsoever. And I personally think it's disgraceful that we throw a Prime Minister of this country out with nothing, no support. Now, this is not something that Albanese would face and it's not something that Dutton would face because both of them were elected before 2004 when it was got rid of. But we now have a former Prime Minister who has no staff, no office, no nothing, and I actually think that's embarrassing for us as a country.
All right, so let's get to the Matt Kean of it all. Look, I say, don't let the door hit you, blah, 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 all the rest. I don't care, right? Good luck. But in his announcement today, and I think it was time to be underneath the cover of the budget and all the rest of it, was the actual detail, which was, yep, I'm pulling the pin. Who cares? That's politics. Yep. But I'm going off to work in the very sector that I used to regulate. Yep. So he stopped the second version of the retirement story, which is, where's he going to pop up? Now, again, this is all above board. I'm not suggesting corruption, all the rest of it, for those that are looking to slay a dragon on his behalf. But to me, and maybe it feeds into the pension system, which is if you've got a scenario where your parliamentary career is going to be about 10 years and you end up being in a ministry that ends up helping a lot of other people grow their businesses or change their business, well, isn't that the retirement plan? And while, again, it is not corrupt, the perception of oddity, I think, builds with all of this.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. One is, I suppose, you know, you don't want someone who knows a lot about a particular area. Could be an invaluable asset in the non-government sector and indeed in the private sector. You know, if
they certainly know how to apply for the government.
And they might, that's right. So it's a question of whether they're just lining their own pockets so they can get in the door of the you know, the next defence minister or the next whoever it is, or the next energy minister, or whether or not they're actually providing, you know, so what should be, you know, valuable insight.
For the record, his expertise is he's an accountant.
That's right, but
by trade, he's an accountant.
Political career, I think, it was to his credit, I think that he said, this is clearly what I'm going to do. He then has to go and seek the approval of the Parliamentary Ethics Committee or some such that will say yay or nay, you can do this. I thought what was a bit unbecoming is that he did it when his successor as Treasurer was handing down the budget. It was obviously an attention-seeking device to sort of detract from that, and I thought it was a bloody good budget too, I have to say.
Oh, of course you did. Come on, stop it.
$5 billion goes
good
from
stuff for
stamp
social
duty
housing,
to
but the rest
social
of it's
housing.
not
That's amazing. And but yeah, I thought that was a bit unbecoming. And you know, politicians don't have many friends outside of politics often. I think, you know, when you're actually going out, and it's the time when, you know, Sam and Ralph, the sheepdog and the wolf, can just sort of shake hands and call it a day. Yeah. I don't know why you'd.
Holly, is the Liberal Party the better for Matt Kean's service?
Joe, honey, there are lots of us with friends outside of politics, and a lot of us were smart enough to keep our friends outside of politics very separate from politics, because, you know, it's always important to have, touch with the real world, but know that your whole world is not going to be this. So I would like to say I have very dear friends outside of politics and always have had. So, you know...
Let's talk about Matt, though.
That's a bit cruel.
Let's talk about Matt. Has he changed the Liberal Party for the better, mate?
Yeah, prob's not, in my view. But that's because I have a very different view and perspective from him when it comes to energy and the security of energy and how we need to work going forward. I have to say, though, I've spent the last 2 days in a menopause inquiry, so I'm actually not up to speed on what the New South Wales budget was today.
Don't fair.
Because I have been neck deep in menopause inquiry.
In that case, take my word, Holly, it was fantastic.
Mate, I will follow up tomorrow when I get a bit of a chance.
Trust but verify that information.
I will double check that, but I do appreciate your input, Joe. But,
and Holly, I am friends with you.
Matt was only a week ago saying he wasn't interested in a move to federal politics after he was touted as maybe wanting to knock off Paul Fletcher. I mean, who knows in this game? But I certainly read a statement that he'd put out, and it seemed to me that he already had something lined up in the energy sector, reading maybe between the lines, but certainly what he put out. I don't know how state parliament works, but I do think there's a period of time that you have to wait from when you were a minister in a particular area before you can go and work in that area, and maybe he's done that time. I don't know.
Well, perhaps he wants to take a term off to come back as a teal. Who knows? But we'll all wait and see, because I've got a feeling we'll hear from him for a long time, and no doubt he'll morph into one of the many former politicians that we've been critical of, who will all unite in their one true hatred, which is us.